taxis and once, improbably enough, a bright yellow school bus. How the hell, Greer had to wonder, did that get here? Lopez, cradling his saw, zoned out with his eyes closed while Donlin kept track of their progress. "We should be approaching the palace," Donlin finally announced, studying his laptop in the back seat. "Well, Hassan," Greer asked, "anything look familiar?" Hassan pressed his face to the dark glass and peered out. He'd grown up in this area, he'd owned the best grocery, he'd had a wife and 2 daughters. Now he had his life, and not much more. "Yes," he said, "you will come to a place in the road that goes 2 ways. "A fork," Lopez said from all the way in back. "Okay, a fork," Hassan said. He hated them all so much that he was afraid they could hear it in his words, however innocent they might be. "You will turn to the right side, and go ahead for maybe 3 miles. "That road going to be cleared for mines?" Sadowski asked. Hassan had no idea. None of this was his idea. And no one else answered either. "And then what should we expect?" Greer asked. "You will see the walls, high walls, maybe 10 feet high, and great iron gates." "If they haven't been stolen," Sadowski said with a knowing smirk. "They will not have been stolen," Hassan said with certainty. "People here are too afraid." "Of Saddam?" Lopez piped in. "We've got him, or haven't they heard?" "Not Saddam. They are afraid of the alkalis." "What's so scary about these alkalis?" Lopez asked. What could Hassan say to that? How could he explain to these ignorant men, these barbarians, who the alkalis were? But he had to tell them. He had to do something to put them on their guard, as they would have to be, or it could cost him his own life, too. "The alkalis are the oldest family in Iraq, and the most powerful. This was once their palace. Saddam took it." "I guess he took pretty much everything," Greer observed. "The alkalis will be back. They have been here for over 1,000 years." He glanced down at his hands where the cuffs were digging into his wrists. "They have been here perhaps forever." Sadowski and Greer exchanged a smile. It was just this kind of mumbo-jumbo that made these people such easy pickings. "So what?" Greer asked. "So they've been around a while." "There are stories," Hassan said, knowing full well that they were mocking him. He tried to turn his hands to increase the circulation. "The alkalis have powers. Strange things happen there. You have to be very careful." "Who you gonna call?" Lopez sang out, shaking his weapon. "Ghostbusters!" The soldiers laughed, though Hassan had no idea why. It crossed his mind, for an instant, that if he could just find a way to kill them all himself, and he wouldn't hesitate, he could commandeer the car and escape. But to where? The Humvee rumbled on, over a road covered with so much wind-blown sand that at times it was impossible to see. Sadowski leaned toward the windshield and stared through the glare. He couldn't get the question of landmines out of his head. 2 of his pals from the 3rd Infantry Division had been in a 19-ton Stryker armored combat vehicle that had been hit by a roadside bomb just the week before, and each had left a leg behind. Far ahead, unless he was imagining it, he thought he saw some whitewashed walls rising like a mirage out of the desert sands. If these were the walls Hassan had been talking about, his estimate was way too low. These walls were more like 15 or 20 feet high, if he could judge from this distance. And they went on for what looked like a 1/4 of a mile on one side alone. Sadowski had already liberated 2 of Saddam's palaces. They hadn't really seemed all that much more spectacular than the houses he saw on MTV's Cribs, and nothing like what he thought of when he heard the word palace. But this place looked like something else. "Should be dead ahead, about a 1/2 mile due west," Donlin reported. "I can see it," Sadowski replied. There were towers, too, narrow white columns set far back from the walls and rising like gleaming needles into the air. The whole compound had to be enormous. Even the roadside began to change. There were date palms lining both sides of the road, along with the desiccated remains of other plants that had died from lack of water. Sadowski could imagine that this was once a very grand